Hello and welcome to Stateline. I'm Josephine Cafagna. Victoria has had its biggest soaking in years and it's not over. Residents of Echuca in the north of the state and those in the far west at Warwick-Nabil and Imbula are preparing for floodwaters next week. In some parts of the state, particularly around Shepparton and Wangaratta, the water has already wreaked havoc, sparking emergency evacuations and causing the flooding of homes and businesses. In Victoria's west, where farmers have been struggling through drought for more than a decade, the rain comes as a mixed blessing. Lisa Maksimovic filed this report from Horsham.
Our coverage begins tonight in Wangaratta, where homes were evacuated this afternoon after a levee bank became unstable.
It's still steadily rising. It is a huge worry and it's quite a threat to us.
The town of Charlton is drying off and cleaning up. 80 properties, including businesses in the main street, were flooded yesterday. For residents in Victoria's flooded regions, this week has been an experience they'll have only once or twice in their lifetimes.
When was the last time you saw it like this? I remember it as a kid, probably in 1956, I think it was. And when did you see it?
I think it was about 82. It come right up over the bank and went up the road, right up to the swimming pool.
But it wasn't all doom and gloom. Despite the mess and destruction, those who've lived with drought year after year thought they'd been blessed.
It's been such a long period of drought and dry, and honestly people were despairing they'd ever see this happening again because it didn't look like it would, and it had a really depressing effect on our community, but this will have a massive impact on a good feeling in the group, so it's just a great story really.
After 14 years or 12 years of drought, it's just going to be magic. Dams are full, yabbies, swimming in dams, water skiing, sailing.
After the deluge last weekend, the level of the Wimmera River around Horsham in the state's far west rose quickly. But warnings that it would break its banks didn't eventuate. Further upstream, it was a different story.
1,500 hectares would have been underwater during the weekend. Out of that, I would estimate that 750 of it will be pretty badly damaged. So in between 400 to 750 hectares we could lose.
Ian Taylor celebrated his birthday this week, his 49th year on this farm. Water should feel like the perfect gift, but not this much. Flooding from the Ashen Creek will wipe out at least a third of his grain crops, a loss of almost $1 million.
This will be one of the crops I'd expect to see a lot of damage in a few days' time. It'll just turn yellow and die, yeah.
Dozens of livestock didn't make it to higher ground. Some of the property's other inhabitants are still hanging on.
The heaviest rain came down last Friday night, about 45 millimetres. But you can see here, days later, just how powerful the water is, surging through Ian Taylor's crops towards Horsham. But there's nothing much he can do about it, except wait for the water to subside.
Dozens of farmers in the region believe the inundation could have been minimised. They say flood channels were blocked and water could have been diverted into empty local lakes.
With a big flood like this, we have the ability to drop it by 2,000 megalitres a day, which is quite significant.
The amount of water we could have diverted, in a statistical sense, was very small and would have made a very little difference. Green Lake we can't get water to from the Wimmera system. It has to come from south and west.
It's the second time in as many years that damaging weather has put Horsham in the headlines.
The Horsham Golf Course used to be renowned for its woodland feel, but on February 7th, fire destroyed the clubhouse, an equipment shed and virtually all the vegetation.
A fire on Black Saturday burnt 3,000 hectares, razed 8 homes and destroyed the Horsham Golf Club. The short time between fire and flood has not gone unnoticed.
Something's different. People say maybe it isn't, maybe it's back to normal. I'm not sure about that. I'm not a scientist, but it just seems to me there is something different with the extremities, and they're quite clear extremities. They're really obvious that what happened in the fire period and what's happening now, they really are at the end of the scale for this climate, for this area. So, yeah, I think we need to be conscious of that this may be a sign of how things will be.
And that's exactly what environment groups have been warning. Environment Victoria says the extreme events of recent times are not surprising.
What scientists have predicted is long periods of drought and then sudden floods, followed by long periods of drought and then sudden floods. And we know that the last big flood in Victoria was about 15 years ago. So what we're seeing is exactly what we would be seeing under climate change and what scientists are predicting.
Many farmers in Victoria's west have been trying to come to terms with the science of climate change, considering how it will change farming practice into the future. This week's turn of events have left them puzzled.
I've been sceptical of it all the time, saying that we'll see water, we'll see floods again. There's no doubt about that. We'll see Lake Hindmarsh full. Hopefully we'll see some of our local lakes full, Green Lake and a few of those. So climate change may be happening. I'm not doubting it. The figures are there to back it. But I think Mother Nature will still look after herself.
Climatologists are reluctant to say the drought is over.
In the short-term drought, I would say most people would believe now that it's over. On the longer time scales, though, Victoria is still about 2 years' worth of rain behind where it should be when you consider the full length of the drought that we've had since 1996. So on the long time scales, well, we still need more rain to fill the dams and so on. On the shorter time scales, yeah, it's looking really good.
But it's not a reason to be complacent. Environment Victoria says the state government should fulfil its promise to restore environmental flows to the rivers.
These recent rains are good fortune from nature for rivers, but not a sign of good management from government. You know, we can't be relying on nature to providing water for our rivers. We actually need to secure them. And, relying on heavy rainfalls to secure water for our rivers is like relying on winning Tats Lotto next week to pay the mortgage off the week after. It's not a very good plan. It's very risky.
For Ian Taylor, the next cycle of drought is something he can't bear to think about yet. He's determined to get his farm back on track, and his first job is to get rid of all this water.
Once this is resided, then we'll go around the fences. As you know, you can't drive anything out here at the moment. We'll just fix it up, the damage, and start all over again.